All right, we are just about a minute out to 1:30, so I don't want to hold us up, but I am really excited for this session today, and I'm excited to introduce our convener, who is a champion of this work, and her students and all professionals who touch any aspect of this work, whether it be on a SUNY campus or nationally, someone who's always willing to help or support or share resources. I don't think that she sleeps, but I know that she is one of the most dedicated professionals in this space. So with that, I'm really excited to introduce today's convener, our great colleague and friend, Lisa Evaneski, who is the Title IX coordinator at SUNY Oswego.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So yeah, Lisa Evaneski, Title IX coordinator at SUNY Oswego, and I'm currently serving as the past president of the SUNY Title IX Coordinators Association. I'm thrilled to be chosen here to introduce One Love. Let's start with Jamie. Jamie O'Leary, she, her, is an engagement coordinator for the One Love Foundation in the DMV area. Jamie works with high schools, colleges, and community partners to bring One Love's life-saving relationship health education to young people across the region. She specializes in healthy relationship education for LGBTQ+ youth and loves working with educators to make their classrooms more inclusive and affirming. Jamie's a graduate of Princeton University, where she studied anthropology and gender and sexuality studies. She has conducted extensive ethnographic research in France and Senegal, and her research interests include the intersections of faith, gender, embodiment, forced migration, and LGBT queer studies. Welcome, Jamie. Michael Harley, he, him, is an engagement coordinator for One Love. He works closely with schools and universities in the tri-state area to roll out One Love's programming in their communities. A native of New Jersey, Michael graduated from SUNY Binghamton with a BA in psychology and a minor in biological anthropology. Pretty smart people here today, folks. Michael graduated from SUNY. Before joining One Love, he worked with Binghamton's 20-to-1 prevention programs, providing educational workshops in sexual assault prevention and bystander intervention to university students. And also on a personal note, I just want to thank One Love for continuing to create new and inclusive content to represent our students and communities. I've been personally using One Love programs on my campus since 2015. Thousands of students and employees have participated in our workshops, our interactive tabling activities, and our Yards for Yardly. So with that, I pass it over. I will mute and help with the chat. Welcome, Michael, and so sorry, I lost your name there, and Jamie.
No worries.
Thanks, Lisa. As she kind of just mentioned, I think there's no better person to set this up for Lisa. She's been a real champion in this work. And then, of course, thank you to Joe and Elizabeth, who are also incredible partners of One Love and bringing this work to college campuses. We're so excited to be here to kind of walk you through One Love's Healthy LGBTQIA+ Relationships Workshop. This is a tool that hopefully at the end of this hour that you all can take and bring back to your campuses. As Lisa introduced me very well, and so excited. I'm calling in today. I'm in our Manhattan office, excited to actually be back in the office, and excited to have my colleague Jamie joining me as well.
Hi, everybody. Again, I'm Jamie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm coming to you live from the greatest city in America, Baltimore. I'm not going to take any arguments about that. And I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you today about this resource and in general about healthy LGBTQ+ relationships.
So we just want to get started with I know there are a lot of people on the line, but when in any One Love presentations, we like to get you all active and a part. I know we can't have you unmuting, but would love if everyone would just share in the chat box your name, pronouns, what you're calling in from. And then if you want to take a try at actually using the reactions to pick an emoji that captures how you're feeling today, the reactions on the bottom right. And then you can also click the dots for a few more options. And we'd love to have everyone try that out, give that a try, because we'll also be using the reaction emojis throughout as an example of how we facilitate these conversations.
I put the ice cream emoji next to my face because I could really go for some ice cream right now. And some other people with some fun ones.
Yeah, I love seeing so many familiar names coming in through the chat from all over. Thank you all so much for joining us today.
Someone said, how do we get the special emojis? So you go to reactions. It should be on your bar with all of the different options, mute, stop video, it should say reactions. You're going to see 5 emojis and then or 6, I guess. And then you'll see 3 dots. If you click on the 3 dots, all of the emojis will show themselves to you and you can pick between them. All right.
Awesome.
So quick agenda as people continue to come in from the waiting room. Welcome everyone. So we're going to just do some continued welcome, introduction to One Love and who we are for those who may not know. We're actually going to let you all choose what we talk about today. So we'll do a poll. We have a whole bunch of topics to choose from. Then we'll do a training on this healthy relationships workshop. We'll tell you how to get it, and then we'll answer any questions that you all might have. Back to you, Michael.
Yeah, so we are not going to be showing any content today, but we know that we all bring different things to the space, and anytime we're engaging these conversations about healthy, unhealthy, abusive relationships, we know that this can bring things up for people. So as always, we just encourage you all to take care of yourselves, to make sure you're putting yourself forward. If you need to step away, please step away. If you need to take a second for yourself, please take a second for yourself, and please make sure you're taking care of yourself both during and after the presentation, especially if there's anything that comes up. So before we really get into the workshop and the LGBTQIA plus healthy relationship workshop, I want to just kind of put One Love in perspective. And if people want to use the reaction, just a thumbs up for if you've heard of One Love before, that is always really helpful to see. But yeah, seeing a lot of thumbs up and perfect. So I'm going to quickly go over One Love and what we do. So we are a national organization. We have regional offices across the country, support every state, like Jamie's in Baltimore, I'm in New York. But really our goal is to educate young people about the importance of relationship health, to empower them to identify and avoid abuse, and learn how to love better, to take the skills that we talk about, to bring them into their lives, to practice healthy relationship behaviors once they're able to identify what an unhealthy relationship looks like. So we know that this is an issue that started out, the reason that One Love exists is because Yardley Love, who was a student at the University of Virginia, I know I saw someone mention in the chat before we got started that they actually lived around the corner from Yardley. Yardley was killed, and her family started the One Love Foundation. She was killed by her ex-boyfriend. But this is not a Yardley issue. Domestic violence, relationship abuse, intimate partner violence is an issue that affects so many people. Over 1 in 2 trans and non-binary people, over 1 in 3 women, and nearly 1 in 3 men will experience some form of intimate partner violence during their lifetime. This is an incredibly pervasive issue, and we need to start these conversations and be able to really activate young people to know how to identify these relationships and what they can do when they see them. We also know that this is an issue that does not impact all communities the same way, right? You see here that we know there's a disproportionate impact within the trans and non-binary community. But Jamie, if you want to hop to the next slide, we know that it also disproportionately impacts Black women, Native American and Alaska Native women. We also know that there's a greater disproportionate impact on the Black trans and non-binary community, the Latinx trans and non-binary community, and the Native trans and non-binary people as well. We always want to bring this to the surface of, while this is an issue that impacts so many of us, we want to acknowledge the disproportionate impact that can have on certain communities and what certain people are dealing with, and the way that it impacts all of us. Because the big idea that drives One Love and all of the conversations that we have is that 100% of us are in relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, familial relationships, and 100% of us can learn how to love better, because we do unhealthy things at times. we need to be able to recognize when we do those things and how we can kind of move forward. And so I'm so excited today to really focus in on how do we do that and how do we have these conversations about LGBTQIA plus relationships. And so Jamie, who I'm so excited to have joining me, Jamie, you actually created this workshop. And so I want to just kind of start with a simple question of why and how did you go about creating and bringing this workshop that we're going to be covering today?
Absolutely. Well, first, just a note on statistics too. I mean, first of all, we know that all of these statistics are way lower than the reality. We know all of this is so underreported. And there's such a lack of inclusive statistics around queer and trans folks, particularly when thinking about other intersecting identities and relationship abuse. There's so little. Oftentimes we see statistics around relationship abuse that just talks about women and men. We don't know, are these cis women? Are these cis men? We don't know, did you talk to any trans people? Did you think about it? And so oftentimes what happens is we're cobbling together statistics from trans studies and from non-inclusive studies. So I would love, maybe someone in this room, I would love to see more and more inclusive research coming out. But really what I want to say is we don't have a full picture of how this impacts the queer community. We know it's very disproportionate, but there's still so much that we need to learn. So going to your question, Michael, I really wanted to create an LGBTQ plus specific workshop because while it's important that every workshop we have be inclusive, there are also unique ways, as you all know, that relationship abuse shows up for queer and trans folks, not only in romantic and sexual relationships, but in friendships and family relationships and all the relationships that we have. And so it's really important to talk about those nuances, talk about those particularities, because it matters. That conversation is not happening enough. Resources are out there, but young folks might not know how to get to them. So while I really want to do inclusion generally, I also really want to have specific resources that really speak to folks' experiences. And while we really focus a lot on film at One Love, I think there's a lot of value in doing more discussion, doing more activities, talking about particular aspects and elements of queer relationships, and really having a space to just be yourself, talk about things you're going through, ask questions, and recognize relationships as part of the way that you grow into yourself as a young queer or trans person. So we created this workshop with an incredible organization here in Maryland called Free State Justice. And I'll give you a sense of them in a minute. But really the idea was they have this incredible competency around LGBTQ plus issues. They wanted to get more into the relationship abuse space. And we really wanted to make something really thoughtful and competent and inclusive. So we figured we'd complement each other's strengths and join forces. And are really excited about the tool that we've created. That's from you, Michael?
Yep.
Perfect. So Free State Justice is an incredible legal advocacy organization here in the state of Maryland. They do direct legal services with folks like name changes, discrimination cases, family law. They do incredible policy work and advocacy and outreach. They're really leading that work here in Maryland, and they do important education and training. So as we put this together, we wanted to learn, or we wanted to teach you all how to work with young people around these issues, how to have nuanced conversations that are not only inclusive, but really speaking to what young people want to know. And of course, we want to talk today about unique ways that relationship abuse and healthy and unhealthy aspects and behaviors might affect LGBTQ plus youth. So a little bit more about why did we want to do this? Well, we know LGBTQ plus youth are likely twice as likely to experience relationship abuse as their non-LGBTQ plus peers. And it's important when I have this conversation with young people to talk about why. So it's not that because of our identities, we are more deserving of relationship abuse in any way, or there's something about us that's causing that. It's really important to talk about, no, there are structures of power that are causing not only large scale abuse, but also trickling down into interpersonal dynamics. We also know that signs of abuse look really similar in a lot of relationships, but might show up in kind of unique or different or subtle ways. And that's not often talked about in healthy relationship education. So what we did with Free State Justice is conduct focus groups with LGBTQ plus youth in Maryland to hear, what do you wish you had gotten? What do you want to get now? What are the questions that you have? What are the challenges and concerns in your relationships? And so here's what they came up with. So first of all, we wanted to talk about One Love's kind of core education, which is healthy and unhealthy relationship signs. And you'll get to see those in just a minute. But we wanted to think about, through an LGBTQ plus lens and through an intersectional lens, how might those show up? How might we as queer folks experience them? Defining relationships. Young people talked a lot about, how do I know when I've never been given a script for the kind of relationship that I want? How do I know what to do? How do I know how to ask someone out? You know, that when I work with middle schoolers, and I've done this dozens of times with middle school groups, it's, how do I know that someone is queer? How do I not out myself while trying to be interested in someone? How do I navigate that conversation? Folks also wanted to talk about healthy relationships with themselves and what role self-confidence and still figuring out your identity plays in relationships. I know we always hear RuPaul say, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love anyone else? But that's actually a really challenging notion for young people who are not anywhere close to loving themselves. So this idea of, I'm still lovable, I still deserve a healthy relationship, even as I go on my journey of self-love, even as I go on my journey of accepting my identity, because that's a lifelong journey and we might never arrive. So how do I work on that, work on my own relationship with myself in the context of always having relationships with others? Another thing folks wanted to talk about was online dating and hookup culture. And if we get to that one today, we'll talk about why online dating is so much more common among queer folks. So people wanted to talk about, how do I navigate online dating? How do I figure out how to find people who will accept me for who I am? How do I know what decisions to make? So that's a piece of the workshop as well. Microaggressions and stereotypes was another piece, particularly in thinking about this idea of relationships being far beyond just romantic and sexual. How do I know what to do when a classmate microaggresses against me? How do I know what to do when I hear a stereotype about myself? How do I start to renegotiate the ways that I talk to myself and the ways that other people talk to me? Folks, of course, wanted to talk about boundaries and consent, different ways that consent might be more nuanced or challenging. Folks wanted to talk about safety and breakup planning, particularly when it comes to family. So oftentimes when we talk about safety planning, we think, you know, you're in an abusive romantic relationship, you need to get out of there. Of course, there are going to be nuances when you might not be out or something like that. But really what young people were saying was, I just want to know how to deal with my family. If I have to stay in my home, or if I'm financially reliant on them and they're not accepting of who I am, or they're not healthy in some way, how do I plan for that? So that's a skill that we talk about in this workshop. And then finally, what are some ways that you could help someone who's in an unhealthy LGBTQ plus relationship of any kind? So these are all topics that we cover in this workshop. And really what it becomes is a choose your own adventure tool. You can take an hour and do one of these. You can take an hour and do 4 of these. You can take, you know, I've done a couple of 10-week series with middle and high schoolers where you can go through everything. You can pick and choose different activities to incorporate into another One Love workshop or a workshop you already do on your campus. So really it's meant to be, here's a whole bunch of ideas, talking points, activities that you can draw from based on the concerns and interests of your students.
Yeah, and to what Jamie said, the most exciting, when Jamie brought this back to our program team at One Love, what is so exciting is that, and I know I saw in the chat Andrew mentioning, like, specifically wanting to talk about hookup culture. Each of these bullet points is a separate activity, as Jamie was just alluding to. So you have the option to say, well, we want to just do a program around boundaries and consent. Or you're sitting there and saying, well, I already have a consent program, but here's something that I could just add to it to make sure any conversation we're having isn't a, okay, well, here's our normal consent workshop that's hetero focused, and then, oh, here's our LGBTQ consent workshop. You can take these activities and bring them into something. It doesn't have to be a full, completely separate hour-long workshop. All of these activities are really malleable and really able to be shaped into and are included into a program, or kind of standalone too. And so hopefully kind of as we go through this, we're about to launch a poll to actually give you all the chance to pick which you want us to go over. because we don't have time to dive into all of these things, but know that when we send out the workshop guide, and we're going to share with you how you all can access it kind of at the conclusion of this. So don't worry, you will have access to the full discussion guide that goes along and has all of these activities laid out. But you're able to kind of pick and choose what you need. So Jamie, do we want to launch that poll now?
That would be awesome.
Okay.
I think I've got it.
You have it. Okay.
All right. So you get to pick one. I know it's going to be really hard to pick. One topic that you really want us to talk about today. I'm going to give you all a minute.
In the now like 15 months we've been doing this, this is the first time I've successfully launched a poll in a work. I think I've got everything else about Zoom down. This is the first time I've been a part of a successful poll launch. So
Are you serious? That's so funny. Maybe it's because I'm here, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually launch the poll, so I can't really take credit for it. But love this, and we'll give everyone another minute to kind of answer. I love seeing quick results. It looks like online dating and hookup culture is in the lead, with microaggressions and stereotypes, boundaries and consent, safety and breakup planning as well.
We've got about 60% of people voted. Maybe we'll give you about 15 more seconds. All right, I think we've got some clear winners, so I'm going to go ahead and close it. All right, so we're definitely going to do online dating and hookup culture, and we'll do microaggressions and stereotypes as well, and then see if we've got a little time to swing through a couple more things. All righty.
So now we're going to give Jamie a second to actually, this is the tough part when we let you pick the adventure. Jamie has to then expertly navigate her PowerPoint to get to the right section. But were we going to start regardless, Jamie, with the 10 signs and kind of set that up for everybody?
That is right. And just a quick little preview, we have a ton of different activities in this workshop, and all of them are designed for either Zoom or in person. So luckily, because this was developed during COVID, it is very Zoom friendly. We'll see some of that today, but there's also lots that you can do in person as well. Typically, when I start one of these workshops, I always do group norms. I'll give some examples and then have folks give their own. I don't think we need to do group norms today, although I hope you all will keep these in mind and hopefully use these and more as you do your own workshops. Just a note about accessing resources. As with any One Love workshop, it's really important to share resources folks can go to if the workshop brings up something for them, they realize anything. So share your campus resources first and foremost. Share any local LGBTQ+ competent resources, like an LGBTQ+ center or local shelter, anything like that. And then we also have some recommendations of national hotlines and resources. And you'll find a much longer list than this in the workshop materials, which you will get. All right, so we want to start you all off with the 10 signs of healthy and unhealthy, because it really undergirds the whole workshop and all of our workshops as well. So I'll let you all take a look. For those who may not have seen this, on the left, we have One Love's 10 signs of a healthy relationship. They include comfortable pace, independence, healthy conflict, my personal favorite, and fun. Relationships should be fun most of the time. They should not make you sad. And on the right, we have unhealthy relationship signs. So things like intensity, betrayal, volatility, belittling. So I'm curious to hear from you all in the chat. I'd love to know, how do you think these signs might show up differently or uniquely in an LGBTQ+ relationship? So one example could be, pretty obvious example, betrayal. Could be outing someone, telling someone something about another person that other person wasn't ready for. And yes, this presentation is super available online, and we will walk you through exactly how to get to it. So I'd love to hear from you all in the chat. Maybe pick a sign or two. How might they show up either differently or uniquely in an LGBTQ+ relationship? Yes, amazing. These are already great. So how does the women loving women stereotype of U-hauling affect comfortable pace? Yeah, absolutely. So when we have a stereotype about a community, oftentimes that can feel prescriptive. Oftentimes it can make it a little challenging to set a comfortable pace. We talk about comfortable pace being set by two people. So if two people are both wanting to go pretty fast in their relationship, it's not necessarily bad, but it's about, are both people communicating, or is one person pulling the other one along? I see belittling, calling a partner a slur, absolutely. Intensity, yes, coming out can feel new and exciting, and sometimes things move way too quickly. Somebody may be wanting to make up for, all the time in high school and college that they didn't get dating and jump right into it. We've heard lots of folks say that that's been their experience. Yeah, belittling someone, saying you're not really X, Y, and Z identity because you don't do X. Yes, possessiveness, we see a lot with bi folks, where there's either a straight or a not straight partner who is using that person's bisexuality as an excuse to control them.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, one exciting plug I will announce is we just saw One Love's newest film, which will be kind of released soon. Actually has a really great scene that focuses on something like a scene with almost a very similar situation to what Brooke mentioned, where there's a bi character who he has his first boyfriend, and kind of navigating that, and some jealousy and comfortable pace and intensity there. And so that's a lookout to be a plug to be on the lookout for one of our newest films.
It's so good. And there are two friends, and one of the friends is bi, and the other friend kisses her and says, well, I thought you would want to kiss me because you're bi. So there's a lot of good stuff there. As a bi person myself, I'm very excited. Thank you so much for all of these incredible examples. And I love the positive ones. Coming out to a partner, trust and honesty. One of the things that I really highlight when I teach this is talking about positive things. We never talk about uniquely positive elements of queer relationships. So thinking about, like, what can we learn from, folks in queer relationships about equality, for example, about respect, for example, about honesty. Thank you. I'll keep putting this good stuff in the chat. This is great.
And going back to one thing that I was mentioning earlier, I start off, and for those who use One Love and use these tools with our 10 signs, we always talk about the 10 signs and encourage people to talk about the 10 signs at the beginning of the workshop. This is a question, right? How might these relationship behaviors show up differently in LGBTQ plus relationships, that I ask in every workshop I do, whether I'm going in saying this is an escalation workshop, or whether I'm going in saying I'm going to do our LGBTQ plus workshop, right? Making sure that at every moment or juncture we can, that people of all identities that are there in all of our workshops feel included in the conversation. I think small things like that might be here in this specific workshop can be included in any conversation.
Yeah, I'm loving what you all are putting in the chat. Definitely true that if folks are at different levels of outness, there can be some pressure there to calibrate, or some pressure there, to come out before someone's ready, or to not be honest with oneself, something like that. Awesome. So we have a couple of fun examples of some of these healthy and unhealthy signs in action, and would love to hear from you in the chat what signs you're seeing. So Michael, if you don't mind being Destiny, I will be Michaela.
Sure. Hey, Michaela, have you heard from Ashton today? We're supposed to hang out later.
No, I haven't. He wasn't in homeroom today. I know he was feeling a bit sick the other day.
Just a quick reminder that Ashton uses they, them, theirs pronouns.
Oh, right. My bad. And thank you. They weren't in homeroom today. I can text them to check in, though.
Awesome. Thanks, Michaela.
All right. So in the chat, what of these healthy signs on the bottom left-hand corner are we seeing? Taking responsibility. Yep. I messed up. Took responsibility. It's all about respect. Yeah. So Destiny's doing a good job respecting Ashton's pronouns, even though Ashton isn't there. Kindness. Yep. Doing a call in. Yep. Absolutely. These are all great. Awesome. So I put taking responsibility and respect, but all of them are very true. I'm going to move on to one of my favorites. All right. So you're going to be Bree, Michael.
Okay.
Mo lives with their older sister, Bree, and they aren't yet ready to tell Bree that they're pansexual. When Mo's taking a nap, Bree looks through their phone and sees that they're talking to many people of many different genders on Tinder.
Mo, what is this? I'm deleting this app right now. You aren't really into all these people. It's just a phase.
Why did you go through my phone? That's private.
It's my job to protect you, and you can't be doing this in my house.
All right, got our word bank there on the bottom left. What are we seeing? Right off the bat, folks are saying possessiveness, betrayal, deflecting responsibility, belittling. Absolutely. And if anyone wants to share why they saw that sign. Guilting, insecurity, yes, and control, volatility. Yeah, pretty volatile thing to wake somebody up to yell at them about something that was on their private phone. Isolation. Yeah, so dating apps could be a real place of connection and community for Mo. Taking that away could be really isolating them. Yeah, you all hit it for sure. There's belittling, manipulation. Yeah, Bree using the fact that Mo lives in her house as leverage. Yep. Deflecting responsibility. It is Bree's job to be kind to Mo, who's living with her. Yep, I chose to invade your space, to saying you live in my house. Yeah, so betrayed Mo's trust by going through their phone, and then is deflecting responsibility onto Mo for something that is very valid, which is Mo's identity. Awesome. All right, we're gonna do one more. You're gonna be Jay's dad, Michael. Jay's parents are having a few of their college friends over for dinner. Throughout the evening, Jay's parents use his dead name and misgender him. Please call me by my real name.
Don't embarrass us in front of our friends.
All right, so I wanted to share some family examples because I think those are important. What do we see here? Folks are saying belittling, guilting, manipulation, betrayal, volatility, isolation. Yeah, so many of these go hand in hand. It's so rare that we don't see a whole bunch of them at once. Manipulation. Yeah, how guilty might Jay feel when his dad is saying who you are is embarrassing? What an incredible guilt that might cause Jay. It's deflecting responsibility. It is Jay's dad's responsibility to be supportive, to be a parent, and Jay's dad is all of a sudden making Jay feel responsible for his embarrassment. Yeah, it's an abuse of parental power for sure, and super belittling, and a betrayal of trust. Jay came out to his parents, and it's a betrayal for them not to respect that. Yeah, and isolating. What an incredibly isolated situation Jay might find himself in. Awesome. So these are just a few examples of scenarios that you could use to just help folks get a sense of how these healthy and unhealthy signs might look in practice. And you can make your own. You do not have to use ours. We've just written some. Some of them are more kind of middle school focused, high school focused, college focused, but feel free to rewrite them or change them in any way you'd like. And yeah, it was important to us to do examples of relationships that go beyond romantic and sexual relationships. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and find us the online dating section. Everybody get your Zoom reactions ready because that's what we're going to use. Here we go. All righty. All right, bringing us to it right now.
Jamie, I'm going to drop in the chat right now an example, a resource that we have that is around our 10 signs and examples of both healthy and unhealthy, our 10 healthy and unhealthy signs, and how some examples of how they may appear in LGBTQ relationships. So that, and I'll be dropping a few more things in as we go along, but just for you all to know it's out there. And we'll talk through how you can get there, not just to click this one link that's all on our education center that we're going to talk about in a bit, but just wanted to include that. So you can see that along with all of these things at one level, we have resources, handouts, and other tools to help kind of add to the conversation.
Yeah, that could be a fun handout to have just sitting around in your LGBT center or your Title IX office or something like that. All right, online dating and hookup culture. So a survey from Tinder found that 80% of LGBTQ plus people believe that dating apps have benefited the community in a positive way. Is that surprising to anyone? Is that what y'all would have thought? Lesbian, gay, or bisexual adults are roughly twice as likely as those who are straight to say that they've ever used a dating platform. People are saying not at all surprising. Yeah, so why do we think that is? Why do you think LGBTQ plus folks are more likely to use dating apps? Give me some examples in the chat. Safety behind the screen. Yeah, so volatility is a real fear, particularly for trans and non-binary folks, for folks who are HIV positive. You don't know how somebody's going to react. And so being able to disclose that kind of information safely at home before you meet someone could allow you to gauge their reaction. It allows for privacy, absolutely. Yep, screening people without facing physical violence. Without gay bars, it is very hard to find people. Yeah, particularly in rural areas. It's like, how do I know? How do I meet people? Gay bars are closing across the country, absolutely. Intentions are up front. Finding community. There are lots of folks who make incredible friends and community on dating apps. Yep, you have more control. You can find people. There's a lack of accessibility to in-person queer space. These are great. Cultural isolation. Yes, there's a lot of isolation. And I always think about isolation in queer relationships as kind of this double isolation, where you already have this isolation potentially from community, from certain friends and family. And then if a partner is intentionally isolating you, that's only compounding what already exists. Yep, and then is this person queer? Are they into me? That's all spelled out for you online. I had a colleague once, a dear colleague, who said to me, I just don't understand why college students would ever use dating apps. Like, that's what parties are for. And I said, well, when I was in college, I would meet men at parties, but that's it. Like, I wanted to use dating apps to find folks that I was interested in dating. All right. So what we're going to do now is use the reactions to react to a couple of quick scenarios. Yeah, if you're an introvert too, you might want to use dating apps. So if you think the scenario is healthy, you're going to use that thumbs up reaction. If you can't find it, feel free to just write in the chat. If you might need some more information, maybe you're not sure, it depends, use the wow face reaction. And if you're for sure it's unhealthy, use the hands clapping reaction.
And this is a great, in person, just if you can get like just green, yellow, red cutouts, right, to hand out and have students hold those up, because we don't all have Zoom emojis of our in-person workshops, but another kind of like, we'll roll with these to make our Zoom workshops the best and encourage you to do that, but for engagement in person too. Or even sometimes we've done, having people move throughout the room. And
that's what I was gonna say. You have like one side of the room be healthy, one side of the room be unhealthy, and you can stand all along that spectrum.
Yeah, and then calling on certain groups and saying, okay, can someone from the I'm not sure section speak up too? Love that activity that way.
Awesome. All right, so here's our first one. Maya, they, them, hears that their partner, Sarah, she, her, is using a dating app. They make a fake profile to see if they can find their partner on the app. It's healthy, unhealthy, or you're not sure. I see 11 people, now 34 people saying unhealthy. Y'all are fast. A couple people saying not sure. Yeah. And so then what I'll do is encourage the folks in my workshop to explain why. What's unhealthy about this? So go ahead and put in the chat if you have any thoughts. Or what might you need to know? If you don't know, what information might you want so that you know whether or not it's healthy? Yeah, it's not a healthy conflict. It's a betrayal of trust. Yep. Could be seen as deceptive. Yeah, one middle schooler said to me, well, you're betraying everyone else on the app because you're making them think you're someone you're not. So you're not just betraying the partner, you're betraying everybody else. I thought that was a good point. Yeah, honestly.
I was just gonna say, I wanted to add also that this is kind of a famous example at One Love, because this scenario comes from a true thing that someone said in a workshop one time. It's like, I did this.
Yeah.
And we were like, wait, what? Hold on, like let's unpack this. But this is a true story of something that was shared with us by a young person.
Yeah, and folks are saying in the chat, the healthy option would be to have a healthy conflict, talk about it, communicate. Folks will bring up, maybe it's an open relationship. Yeah, so that might be information we need. If it is an open relationship, this still might not be a healthy way to handle it, but we can talk about the different nuances there. All right, Stephen and John have been talking on a dating app for a couple of hours. Stephen asked John to meet up that night to hang out. How do you feel about this? Seeing very many, I'm not sure, it depends. Seeing a couple healthy, couple unhealthy. Yeah, what does it depend on? That's what I would ask students in this situation. What would you want to know in order to gauge whether or not this is healthy? Depends if there's pressure. Yeah, it depends if John wants to. Is there an age difference? What are the expectations? Have they talked about it? Yeah, what does hang out mean? Can we get some clarity there? Is there consent? Where are they hanging out? Yep.
Yeah.
How do both people feel? Go ahead, Michael.
And yeah, I just love also to focus not just on how might it depend, but then as people start to bring these concerns up, well, how can Stephen, who's asking John to do this, how can Stephen kind of go about some of these concerns, right?
Yeah.
What, in a healthy way, what can that conversation look like? Because I think so often young people say, well, these conversations, they're just so awkward, right? That would be uncomfortable. And so also pulling out, okay, well, what can Stephen say? How can he approach that conversation to make John comfortable, or check in with John to see if John is comfortable doing this?
Yeah. And hopefully then folks could say, how might I do that in the future? What kinds of questions might I want to ask someone if I want to hang out with them? What kinds of worries might they have? Or what kinds of worries might I have? And what would I look for in a partner around whether or not they're addressing them? Yeah, is Stephen prepared to gracefully accept a no? Incredibly important. Awesome. All right, we're going to move on to microaggressions just for the sake of time. So the first thing we'll do in this section is really talk about what is a microaggression, what is a stereotype. I'll have young folks define it for us. I'll share some of my own definitions, and we'll talk about the ways that they're linked. So oftentimes microaggressions are based on stereotypes, for example. So then the way that this activity works is to think about, first of all, how do we know whether something's a microaggression or a stereotype? How do we identify it? And then what's really behind it? So what's the message behind the microaggression or the stereotype that's being sent, maybe unintentionally, maybe intentionally? And finally, how do I redirect this? And it could be, how do I redirect this to the person? Or it could be, how do I redirect this in my own mind? I might not have the emotional energy to redirect a stereotype against me or microaggression being wielded against me, and that's allowed. But how might I help myself realize this is actually the truth? What this person is implying is not the truth. So one example I give, there's always at least one person who's more masculine in a lesbian relationship. That's a stereotype. What is it really saying? Well, it's saying every relationship should look like a heterosexual relationship, even if it's not one. And what can I say to myself then hearing this? Well, relationships can take any form. I don't have to be masculine. I don't have to present as feminine. Any way that I express my gender is legitimate, and I am legitimate in any relationship I choose to be in. Another one, a microaggression, is, oh, wow, you don't even look trans, or you look passing. People might mean this as a compliment, but what they're really saying is all trans people have to look visibly trans, or there's one way that trans people look, or that not looking that one way is somehow good. So a redirection could be trans people who don't pass are just as valid. You don't have to pass. You don't have to change your gender expression for other people's consumption. And all bodies and genders and experiences are valid. So then what I'll do is I'll ask young people to share yes in the chat. Which one of you is the man or which one of you is the woman? Big time. Yeah, there's so many different iterations of like who's the man, who's the woman, who's the feminine one, who's the masculine one, who wears the pants. And I always, one of my favorite anecdotes is that when I was in college, I was dating this woman who broke up with me because she said that I wasn't able to be the man in the relationship because I'm bi. And I was like, okay, so this is biphobic. And also like, the whole point is that there's no man, right? Like I didn't come here to be the man in the relationship. So I like to tell that story. So what I'll ask young people to do is share a stereotype or a microaggression that they've heard, and then we'll actually go through this framework together. So I wanted to show you an example that my group of middle schoolers did the other day. One of the things that they hear a lot is no homo. That's something that I heard a lot when I was growing up that apparently is still a thing. And so I asked them, what's harmful about no homo? What's really the message behind it? And they said, well, it implies that being gay is bad. It implies that certain types of behaviors are gay. So that someone who does that behavior has to be gay, and that someone who's gay has to do that behavior. They said someone who's closeted who hears a friend say that would feel terrible and might think that their friends are afraid of homosexuality or queerness. So they said, well, maybe what we could say is something funny. We could say yes homo or no hetero and try to diffuse the tension. You could be direct and say, what's wrong with that? Or you could just say to yourself, there's nothing wrong with being gay. How I am is okay. Yeah, y'all are giving me some good stuff in the chat. Yeah, around asexual identity. Absolutely. They also shared, the middle schoolers said, you know, well, you're pan or you're bi or you're omni, but you've had a crush on this boy. They said, well, that means that the message behind it is that every bi or pan or omni or poly person is secretly gay or straight. It's invalidating that whole spectrum. There's this mindset of gay until proven otherwise. It's invalidating someone. It's rude, they said. So they said, well, you could say that's rude. You could make a cheat sheet to be able to give to people so you don't have to explain your identity. You could share an article. You could say why what they said is harmful. So this all came from my wonderful group of middle schoolers. Awesome, let me see. Yeah, young people are so insightful, it's so true. All right, so I wanna make sure that we've got time for lots of questions and for information about how to get this workshop. But I'll show you one more quick student example and then we'll move on. So I wanted to show you an example of a Jamboard. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you've ever used a Jamboard. It's a super helpful tool. Got quite a few, got 11, 12, 14, 16 thumbs up, awesome. So I love to use Jamboards for this workshop because it allows folks who are not wanting to speak up for whatever reason to participate. And over Zoom, there are a lot of reasons. You might be in a household that is not accepting and you can't let them know that you're in this type of workshop. It might be that you're just still figuring things out and you just want to listen and watch and see what's going on. And so Jamboards are a chance to be anonymous and share thoughts, and it becomes a little bit more approachable. So I asked a group of middle schoolers about self-love, healthy relationships with yourself, and just wanted you to see some of the thoughts that they had. I love the one on the bottom right. Self-love is, I have no clue. I know some concepts about it, like doing proper self-care, having good self-esteem. It might also be respecting your limits. I don't know, smiley face. So we had a good conversation about boundaries and limits and how to set boundaries, particularly in the context of relationships with families. One of the kids said it means positive affirmations, recognizing something that you did that you just think is amazing. My grades never suffer no matter how bad my mental health is. And I think sometimes sacrificing my grades would be okay. I mean, that's super deep. So this is just an example of a Jamboard. We've got a couple more that I can send to you all. We had some folks thinking about navigating breakups. What are some extra things people might have to think about when ending relationships? Folks said the breakup might reflect on the queer community. There could be gossip. You might not have a strong support system. You might feel pressured not to break up because there's not so many options for people to date. There's no one else at school to really talk to. And again, these are questions that can be tailored to the age group. These are a little bit younger, but you can really put anything you want on a Jamboard, and I think it really engenders some great discussion. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and share. Yeah, what a great opportunity for people to bring up mental health concerns in an anonymous way, for sure. And Jamboard's free. It's through Google. You can just go ahead and search it and use it. So I want to show you how to get this workshop. Michael's going to walk us through that. And then we're going to open it up if folks have questions or comments. So I'm just going to.
Yeah, and one other thing, as Jamie's scrolling that, right here, in addition to this workshop, which I am right now going to drop in the chat, the link to the discussion guide that has all of these activities. And in a second, I will walk you through where all of this content lives. But we also have an LGBTQ plus toolkit that has kind of a lot of the tools and materials that we discussed. We have the national resources that Jamie shared. We have the 10 healthy and unhealthy signs, the link that I shared before. We have LGBTQ plus statistics. We have tips for supporting an LGBTQ plus person who's in an abusive relationship. We have some of those gut check scenarios. So there's a toolkit, right, that just has a lot of information. And then there's this workshop that I just shared, right? So if you are talking to someone who's like, I just am looking for a resource around this with general information, talking about LGBTQIA plus relationships, you can direct them to the toolkit. And if you're looking for someone who wants to actually facilitate a workshop, have a conversation with the group, you have this discussion guide. And then on the Education Center, which we're about to talk about, you also have the PowerPoint that Jamie has been working off of as well. So this is kind of what I was saying. The One Love Education Center, which also houses all of our films, all of our trainings. The most exciting part and really unique thing to it, as it's launched in the last year, is that it also houses all of our resources, which I was just trying to touch on. So right now I'm going to put the link in the chat, onelove.org/education. This is the link to our education center, and this is what it looks like. If you've never seen this before, this is your opportunity to actually create an account and unlock a whole new suite of tools that you can use, not just our LGBTQIA tools, but also some of our regular workshops and films that I mentioned. So you'll go on to the education center, create an account, and then once you're on here, you will have access to our dashboard and courses. Jamie, if you want to go to the next slide. And this is what it'll look like for you. There are 2 prerequisite courses. There's an intro to One Love. There's another course on effective facilitating. These video modules are about 12 to 15 minutes. And then you will have completed courses for our film-based workshops. And then additionally, you will have available courses. But the really exciting thing, and where when you come on, you're going to go, you'll click resources at the top, and then it will take you to our resource library. Jamie, which I think is the next slide. Yep, she's circling it for where you would go, and then that will take you to the resource library. You can, this is under topics here, that there's an entire topic that is just for LGBTQ plus workshops, content, toolkit, and everything. You can also search LGBTQ in the search bar, but all of the tools that we talked about are here. All of the things that we've shared today live here. So make sure that if you haven't before coming out of this, you take a few minutes. I promise it'll take you 20 seconds to create an account on the Education Center, and then you will have access to all of the tools that we share. If you are struggling or you can't figure it out, I am putting my email in the chat, and Jamie will also add hers. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We at One Love, our job is to be a support system for all of you in making this a reality. So really quickly, also a few other things that we have to plug. Is when you're doing this, you do not have to take this survey right now. I just want to stress that this is not for you all. This is when you are facilitating the workshop. We have a feedback survey that you can share with all of your workshop participants so that they can give their feedback on it. And then we will send that feedback back to you so that you can see what the impact of your workshops are.
Yeah, and we love to know when you're using these materials, when you have feedback or questions for us. I love to get on the phone with educators and figure out ways in which they can customize this to really work well for their students. So do reach out to us. We really, truly would love to be in touch with you.
And then One Love has a series of options, of other kind of professional developments. If you enjoyed what Jamie and I had to share today, One Love leads a series of educator hours, which are hour sessions every week. They'll be starting up again when the school year starts. Nothing in the summer right now. We have an education certification program, which I know, seeing some of the names in here, that some of you have actually attended that program. And then what I will say I'm most excited about, especially here at Spectrum and having a One Love presentation, is that some of you may have been able to attend last September our Pivot to Prevention conference. We are excited to be doing that again. One Love and SUNY will be continuing this partnership. And if you actually want to register for that conference right now, which will be on September 9th, you can click on that link that I just shared, and it will take you to register early and often for Pivot to Prevention, which is coming up in September, where we will be talking about all things interpersonal violence prevention, and SUNY and One Love will be sharing our whole suite of resources that both of our systems and organizations have. And so with that, Jamie, do you have anything else that you want to close with before we open it up for, I think we should have about 7 minutes of questions? I think
Yeah.
Joe and Elizabeth, are we good? So a few more minutes for questions. Awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that was very comprehensive. Thank you, Michael. And there are quite a few other LGBTQ plus competency webinars on the Education Center as well. If you like the sound of Michael's and my voices for whatever reason, you can see more of us on there. But yeah, I mean, again, we would love to work with you. Please be in touch. I'm more than happy to connect with anyone, and I know Michael is too. So we'll open it up for questions. What is the best way that you all typically do questions? Put them in the chat. Is that the way to
Yes.
go?
Folks can put them in the chat, or if they'd prefer to remain anonymous, they can send them directly to me or to Michael or Jamie, I'm sure, and we can announce your question and then answer it.
Awesome. And for those who might be joining on Facebook Live, I did get a message about that. You can just go ahead to joinonelove.org and navigate to the Education Center from there. Or you're welcome to just send me an email at jamie.o'leary, OLEARY, @joinonelove.org.
I also can update the description in our YouTube Live to include the links.
Perfect. Awesome. Any questions from folks or comments? Thank you for your kind comments in the chat.
Yeah, and I would just really encourage everyone, we covered three of the activities. You saw two are kind of what we call our gut check scenario based. The microaggressions and stereotypes is a little bit different, but there's a whole range of types of activities and different types of engagement there. So we covered what we can here, but encourage everyone to take some time and go through and actually look at to look at the other activities as well.
Michael, do you know the date for the next educator certification program?
Yeah, so Pivot to Prevention is going to be kind of our college-focused educator certification program for the fall. So that will be on September 9th. But we will also be hosting one that's middle school and high school specific, and then another one for the DV community as well. And that will be on the last weeks of August, the 23rd and 24th, I believe.
Awesome. And thanks, Elizabeth, for putting that registration into the chat. All right. Other questions or comments? Thank you all for being here.
I just have a quick comment. I know you mentioned this for the LGBTQI plus session, but for all of the One Love products, I think it's really great to kind of pick and choose and create your own workshop. I did that with the Behind the Post workshop. I took some of the other pieces of other workshops and then made a longer workshop out of it. So I think, Michael, you could agree or disagree, but I think you agree with this, that, use it in a way that makes sense for your community. And I really like that. And it's been really powerful to be able to, take things from different workshops. So just an idea.
Yeah, you all are the experts on your audience. So you know what your audience wants and needs. And I'm sure they'll tell you as well. And then Michael, you want to talk about studies?
Yeah, have we done any studies to determine effectiveness? We're not an evidence-based program, but something that at One Love we really pride ourselves on is kind of that survey that I mentioned at the very end is we try and collect data on almost all of our workshops that we do. In the past year, we collected over 10,000 surveys from our workshop participants and use those to really be a learning organization. And so we are working, as said, when we were kind of in that dead time, Dr. Peabody, we were working actually with Elizabeth Michelle, who presented last to make One Love an evidence-based program. But we are certainly evidence-informed and base all of our workshops and our teachings in evidence that exists out there from research that's been done by the community, and then also the learnings that we have just from engaging with young people. And would also say, though, that if you are looking at this and you all had such wonderful insights, another way is, Jamie just said, you all are experts too. If you have thoughts or feedback or pieces or maybe an activity that you do that wasn't covered here, reach out to us. Let us know. We'd love to have that conversation, because this is how we create the best tools. We listen to the community and try and bring that back. And yeah, shout out. Dr. Peabody was there during one of my first ever practice sessions when I was becoming a facilitator back at Binghamton. So
come a long way, Michael.
Any other questions? I know everyone's like, all right, Friday, 2:30, one more session. Awesome. Well, a big thank you again to Joe and Elizabeth for putting this on and having One Love and giving us the opportunity to share, and for Lisa for convening the session, a true One Love stalwart and superstar, and also Jamie. Huge kudos go to Jamie and her work actually creating this workshop. And so honored to be here and to be able to present and share this with you, and look forward to hearing from everyone going forward.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you both so much for being here. Thank you to Lisa for convening today. And we hope to see folks back here at 3 o'clock for our next session, which is going to be on effective messaging and communications when advocating for social change. We're very excited about it. We hope to see you back on September 9th for our Pivot to Prevention meeting. It went really well last year, and we're excited to do it all again. So with that, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Lisa. We will see you all right back here at 3 o'clock.